Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:07 on O'Connor and Company on a very somber morning as we go through all of the details that we're learning and continue to learn about the mid-air collision over Reagan Airport last night at 9 p.m. The rescue effort continues in the Potomac. There are 64 passengers and crew on the American Airlines jet coming out of Wichita, Kansas, 3 crew members of the Army Black Hawk helicopter, and as we get information, we will convey it directly to you. We are involved in information here, not speculation. So if you're looking for speculation and wild theories, please, I think that there's plenty of places you could go, but not here. Coming up later this morning, in 10 minutes, we're going to check in with Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, who is Army Intelligence retired officer, and then we're going to tap into his expertise on what this investigation looks like and what could have been going on with that Black Hawk helicopter based on his expertise. 6:35, Reagan Reese, White House Correspondent for Daily Caller. 8:05, KT McFarland. And then at 8:35, Phil Kerpen on the RFK hearings yesterday. It's Larry O'Connor. Mercedes Schlapp. And Mercedes, your family, as we've mentioned, have connections back to Wichita, and your family often takes this flight coming in from Kansas on a regular basis, right? It's a new flight from Wichita, just about a year old, into Reagan.
Yeah, and my niece, for example, her parents, she lives here in Virginia, Laura Schlapp, her parents fly on that flight all the time. I mean, we have family coming constantly from Wichita to D.C. as we go to Wichita as well. So it's very personal for us. Grandma Sue called me last night and was, saying, goodness, we probably know somebody on that flight, and just was really heartbroken by it. But, I think that you're looking at the fact that the response has been, the rescue response, they've moved quickly. You saw the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, there, as well as the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and then Pete Hegseth, because obviously you've seen this Black Hawk helicopter involved, Larry. Yep. He's also said that they're launching an investigation into what has happened as well. But, FAA has issued a ground stop at Reagan National Airport till 11, and then flights are going to be halted till 11 a.m. And sent over to Dulles Airport. So I think there's a lot of movement happening here in terms of getting to the bottom of it.
And if you believe you know somebody from Wichita on that flight, or from Washington returning from Wichita, American Airlines wants to hear from you. 800-679-8215. That number for American Airlines, specifically for friends or family of those that could have been on this flight, 5342. The number is 800-679-8215. As Mercedes just said, Reagan Airport right now will not be having any air traffic until 11 o'clock. As of now, that could change. Could be pushed back even further. Flights are going to be going out of Dulles. BWI is operational. Joining us right now, Cully Stimson, who ironically also is flying today. He's a senior legal fellow at Heritage Foundation. And Cully, were you planning on flying out of Reagan and you've been diverted to Dulles, or were you always going to go out of Dulles?
No, I was going out of Dulles, and what a horrible morning. My heart goes out to all those families. Apparently some athletes, national ranked athletes were on that. Gosh, what a horrible day.
Yeah, it really is. And I know with your Army background and you used to work in the Pentagon, the fact that an Army aircraft is involved with this is going to add another layer of investigation to the proceedings. And as an attorney, I don't know if you've had any experience with that sort of thing coming out of the Pentagon, and what sort of mobilization is done there to sort of work hand in glove with the federal authorities as well. Can you shed a little light on that?
Yeah. Well, first off, I was a naval officer, as you know, and your daughter serves honorably in our Navy. And I did actually do an aviation mishap investigation when I was deployed to Africa. And so I think that this will be obviously a combined investigation between NTSB, the military, mainly Army Aviation, and local authorities. There's obviously footage of this crash. Yeah. So you'll have to get to the bottom of this, and the facts matter. So Tony probably can tell you more about Army protocol in terms of flying in restricted airspace over national. Mm-hmm. But, we'll get to the bottom of this. All planes have black boxes. Army helicopters probably have sophisticated information on board that could leak comms that maybe the public won't be able to get, that be able to tell us what happened and why it happened.
Cully Stimson, you're also an expert on detainee affairs during the war on terror, and that involved Guantanamo Bay, of course, where there are facilities that were created specifically for terrorists, and it's relatively empty now, but President Trump says that if there are horrible, hardened, violent criminals here that are illegal aliens and their countries can't take them, or if we don't believe their countries will properly detain them, he wants to send them to Gitmo. What does that look like?
Well, this is history repeating itself, Mercedes and Larry, because the CO, the commanding officer of Naval Station Guantanamo, not the Joint Terrorism Task Force down there that has only 15 detainees on the other side of the base, but that CO is dual-hatted and has been dual-hatted. Not only is she or he the head of the Navy base, it's a small one, but they're also the head of migrant ops. And back in the Clinton administration, they actually used Guantanamo for tens of thousands of Haitian and Cuban refugees who put out to sea, and we built a tent city there. And we've had that there. I wrote about it at the Daily Signal, which is our blog. And so we've had tens of thousands of Guantanamo detainees at Guantanamo who are not terrorists, migrants. And so they're already trained to and equipped for migrant operations. And so when Secretary Hegseth says they can do this, they've done it. And they're prepared for it, and they train to it.
Now they're looking at the fact that they're looking to send 30,000 criminal illegal aliens. What's the capacity at Guantanamo Bay? How many people could, in fact, they hold if this number increases?
They can easily handle 30,000, Mercedes, and probably more. And my guess is, if history is prologue here, as past is prologue, that they'll go there and there'll be a revolving door. People will go there, and then from there it'll be a staging point to their home countries. Some will take longer because other countries will be a little recalcitrant to take some of these folks back. But they have a huge area. There are pictures on the internet you can find where there were tent cities, not only on the old World War II air base landing strip there, but on the golf course there. So they have ample capacity for this.
And the president clearly is there, going back to the Clinton administration, as you laid out. I remember the Haitian migrant issue at the time. I don't remember Gitmo being active.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There's no concerns, though, legally in terms of the handshake between the military, homeland security, and operation involving immigration protocols and border security. There's that's not a civilian operation, or if it is an operation through homeland security, there's nothing wrong with using military for it, right?
It won't impact detention operations for terrorist detainees at all. The main capacity limiter down there is fresh water, because they have a desalinization plant, and the Cuban government does not let us use their fresh water. So that's the only limiting factor down there, is the desalinization plant. But they can ship water in.
Okay, I was going to say, how do they handle the water situation while in the Cuba, being in that area in Guantanamo Bay?
We built our own desalinization plant in the early 60s and updated it since then, because the Cuban government is not terribly friendly with us on that.
Right.
And so, again, that was an issue when we were sending terrorist detainees down there, but we have barges and other equipment ready to be deployed over to Guantanamo to help with that. So that is the only limiting factor.
Yeah.
We got to leave it there. Cully Stimson, absolutely great stuff. Thank you for informing our audience. That's the thing that you do best, and we appreciate it. And travel safely today out of Dulles.
Thank you very much, folks. Appreciate it.
It is 6:15 WMAL traffic.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live.
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Traffic and weather brought to you by Hadid Carpet Cleaning.
It's Larry O'Connor and Mercedes Schlapp on this somber Thursday morning, and joining us now is Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, former U.S. Army Reserve Lieutenant Colonel and a CIA-trained intelligence operations officer. I do want you to chime in on the hearing that we're going to have today with Tulsi Gabbard, but first,
Sure.
I'd love for you to shed a little light on what you imagine is happening here. First of all, the the Army operations with their Black Hawk flying in such a crowd. A lot of questions here about whether this is routine or not, whether these kind of training exercises and operations take place at night during a busy traffic time for the airport. Is this typical, Tony, based on your experience?
Well, yes. Good morning, and it's a very somber morning. There's a lot of questions about what this mission was. Initially, it was reported as a VIP flight. Then they said, no, it's a training flight. The origins of the helicopter, this portion of the flight was at Langley, which is CIA headquarters. So just saying, we don't know what that's all about yet. And, yeah, these things fly up and down the Potomac all hours of the day and night. One of the missions they train for is what we call continuity of government, COG. You know what that is. So because of the need to have adequate and reliable train crews who can fly in difficult conditions, they fly in some very odd times. So I'm not surprised. But what I am surprised about is how these two aircraft became so close.
Right.
Normally the separation, morning Mercedes, the morning, normally there's a separation that's at least a quarter mile. And obviously that wasn't the case here. And it was very clear from the tapes we've already heard that there may have been a misidentification. That runway 33, it's kind of a odd runway. By fact, you have to come in almost over Bowling to get to it, over National Harbor. And that's where the helicopter was coming up out of the Potomac. So it was a point where, the helicopter was supposed to be low, below 200 feet. The aircraft coming in was supposed to be high, about 400 feet. Well, 200 feet, that's where the error happened, and I think we're going to come to find something regarding misidentification. I think the helicopter, from what I've seen of all the data, the helicopter was a bit too high. I was talking to one of the first responders. He has seen it as well. He thinks that the helicopter came in a bit too high, and that's what happened.
Right, and it seems that there was a departing plane. There was the plane that was landing. Then you have the air traffic controller telling the Black Hawk, you see the plane. So I think that there is a lot of questions there on how that's going to be answered. Now, there is normally in these airlines, in these airplanes, they have those black boxes, right? So hopefully we'll know.
And they've been recovered.
Yeah. And I think, but let me ask you, so Black Hawk, aren't they in total darkness there? Like there's no light, no nothing. So the plane wouldn't have seen the Black Hawk, probably.
No. Theory here altogether, complete theory. The aircraft is moving at about 140 knots. That's fast. And you guys both have flown in and out of there. We all are, and that's why this is so personal to us. I mean, I don't know how many times we've all been flying on a late aircraft coming into that airport, like, wow. So at that point in time, if you're the pilot of the jet, your vision is focused right on that runway, and that everything else is noise around you, a lot of light noise. So you wouldn't be able to pick up that Black Hawk off to your peripheral vision to the right. I mean, it would be lost. And my son's
well, and you don't
maneuver
on a commercial jet. You're not going to be able to maneuver in the way that a helicopter
can. No, of course. Now, one thing that does concern me, real quick to add into the discussion, I don't want to be insensitive, but they knew at 10:52 last night that nobody survived. And I'm saying this with all due deference to the family. It became a recovery operation at approximately 10:50. The site commander said it. They actually kind of alluded to it in the press conference last night. So I'm not quite sure what what they're doing to not just say, "Hey, this is tragic. We're now in recovery ops." Because to your point, Mercy, they have divers out there. They had divers out there within a matter of less than an hour trying to get through to that. So I don't understand the miscommunication or less than clear communication. But at this point, they're doing everything they can to secure the aircraft, both aircraft, right?
I would suspect that it's just in the spirit of trying to keep as much hope as possible alive for those families until they can't anymore. Tony, real fast, you had mentioned the reports of a VIP on this helicopter, and what I saw those reports as well, and in fact, some of the reports came from credible sources, and then have they discounted that now, or?
So the Army. So the initial response was from credible sources, and I'll cite Northern Virginia first responders. I'll leave it at that. You both probably know one of my sources. Just saying. And the written information they were given was VIP flight. Now, the Army has not said no. They said, well, no, it was a training exercise, a training flight.
But that doesn't mean it was. There wasn't a VIP involved.
Both could be true. Both could be true.
Right.
Yeah. So we just don't know. And
Okay.
again, we don't until they identify the crew. We don't know who they're going to be. So that's still out there.
By the way, there is imagery now. Fox 5 has put it out about 5 minutes ago of a American flag draped remains of a victim being wheeled into a vehicle on the tarmac with first responders, police officers, and firefighters all standing at attention, saluting that flag draped remains on a cot. It's a stirring image, and certainly one that we're going to see quite a bit as this story continues to unfold. Colonel Tony Shaffer, great to talk with you. You know what? We'll try to circle back with you on Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation hearing today another time.
Be around.
But we have news events. Thank you. It
Thank you,
is
Johnny.
6:23.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:37 now, O'Connor and Company. Thanks so much for tuning in today on a very, very busy morning as we continue to watch the events unfold over at the Potomac. A sunrise technically is not until the 7 o'clock window, but we are getting, as they say, dawn's early break. Within the next 10 or 15 minutes, visibility will be better. We'll get a fuller extent of this recovery operation going on from the tragic air crash last night, 9 p.m., American Airlines coming in from Wichita, Kansas, and an Army Black Hawk helicopter out of Fort Belvoir. We're waiting for more official information, as well as the last press conference we have is from 1 a.m. There should be one sometime during this program. We'll let you know as soon as we know for sure. So keep it here. This is where you want to be. You know that. Coming up to join us to discuss these issues and more at 8:05, KT McFarland, national security expert, and then at 8:35, Phil Kerpen. It's Larry O'Connor, and that's Mercedes Schlapp. Good morning, Mercedes.
Good morning, Larry.
And
Obviously tracking this horrific news.
Yes, it's horrible. And joining us right now, the pride of Hillsdale College and the Daily Caller. We were very excited to see her called upon at the first White House briefing because we feel on this show a kinship to Reagan Reese. We sort of took her under our wing. Basically, everything that she's become is because of me. Reagan, thanks for joining us today on a tough day as well.
So
Thank
true.
you, though. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I do want to hear about the executive actions yesterday and the signing of the Lake and Riley law. But first, I know that you've probably been plugged in quite a bit on the administration's rapid response to this tragic crash at Reagan Airport. What can you tell us? I mean, these people, Secretary Duffy literally just got sworn in within 24 hours ago, and I think he's been working all night on this. Is there anything new from the White House or from the administration?
Yeah, from the administration, I have yet to receive some sort of guidance on today, but I do expect, just with what we've seen from President Trump the last week and how public he has been, that potentially there will be some sort of remarks. And if not him, then his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, I believe within just an hour or so of the news, was already making public statements, helping confirm details, because there were tons of speculation and rumors going around on Twitter about what had happened, and I didn't even have a chance to reach out to the White House press office myself before Caroline was online making public statements saying, yes, it was a Black Hawk helicopter, yes, there was a collision, and yes, the president has been briefed, and the president late into the night, just alongside his transportation secretary, was briefed and updated on the situation and following it closely.
Well, and it looks like Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered an investigation into what happened, because we've seen that this Black Hawk helicopter was associated, obviously collided with this airplane, and then it raises a ton of questions in terms of, did these air traffic controllers give enough information to the Black Hawk helicopter that could have possibly prevented this collision? What do you expect to happen next coming out of this horrific tragedy. I mean, obviously we haven't seen a collision like this happen in the United States for some time, and we are known as kind of the gold standard for aviation safety.
Yeah, I mean, it's no one wants this to happen, and this is, I think, very freaky and terrifying for so many people. And so I think this is going to be handled with a great seriousness by our government, looking into safety standards and was that, what went wrong here. And I am thinking about this collision midair and just how many things have to go wrong, I would imagine, for something like the odds of that to happen. And then I think about, over the past year, how there have been a lot of near misses that we've heard about, planes on runways and miscommunications. And it seems like our aviation system was being overloaded. And so I think there's going to be a lot of reflection, especially with just the incidents leading up to this collision.
Reagan Reese is our guest, White House correspondent for the Daily Caller. And Reagan, it was a busy day at the White House where the president had a ceremonial signing of his very first bill into law, and I think it's appropriate that it was the Laken Riley bill that is now the Laken Riley Act. It was an emotional scene there in the East Room with the mother of Laken Riley delivering remarks. What was it like, and why was this so important, you think, for the Trump administration to make sure that this was the first law that he signed in for the second administration?
Yeah, it was definitely somber, and somber, but also I thought that both Trump and Laken's family put it well, that they are able to use her memory to save other lives, and that her story is going to save lives, that it did not end on that trail, that is going to be continued through this legislation and through the reform it's able to bring. And so, while of course there is that sadness and that family sitting right there and Laken's mother is speaking, they harped on, why, how they are trusting the Lord through this tragedy that was brought on their lives. And I think, border issues were a big thing to President Trump, but he's also, a very, I think, emotional man and wants to really connect with the American people. And so that's why I think this bill was so symbolic and special to him. Yeah.
By the way, and just as we're done. Sorry, Mercedes.
It's okay, Larry. It's okay. I was just, I know you claimed Reagan as your prodigy, but I'm going to claim her as my other daughter at this point because she's very smart. So I'll
arm wrestle you over Reagan.
Fine.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
fine.
you.
We'll just do that. We'll just raise her together. I mean, seriously.
Reagan, there was a moment after President Trump signed this bill, he was turning to Laken Riley's mother, still grieving, and was handing her the pen when one of your colleagues in the White House pool started yelling out a question about government funding. And President Trump turned to him and said, "This is not the appropriate time." Reagan, I don't care who it was. Don't be that guy ever. Don't disappoint us, Reagan. I don't want you to ever be that guy. Okay.
She's not going to, Larry. Don't worry. She's with us.
Yes, you have to be able to read the room and the emotions. And as the president and Laken's mom was sitting there, I said to myself, whatever question I have is not as important as this moment right now.
Yeah, I hope your colleagues will chastise that person, but sadly, I doubt they will. Reagan Reese, Daily Caller, thanks for joining us. We've got to leave it there. It is 6:44. Well, let's give you a quick update on this RFK hearing yesterday. I was a little on the fence on this whole thing, but then when I saw how out of control the Democrats were and how angry, they're so angry at RFK Jr. for his apostasy, for going against the Democrat mindset and daring to support Donald Trump. They're livid with him, and they seem terrified that he actually will make good on his promise to hold pharmaceutical companies accountable.
Well, you have Caroline Kennedy coming out, his niece basically calling him a predator. You've got Bernie Sanders yelling about the onesies. You've got Elizabeth Warren. I mean, she was emotionally out of control. And what's happening is that this kind of political theater coming from the Democrat side it's not working. It didn't work for Pete
Nope.
during the Pete Hegseth hearing. Now it's not working for the RFK Jr. hearing. And I think he really came out strong saying, look, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm going to be raising questions about what our pharmaceutical companies are doing, what the food industry is doing. And he has talked about the importance of his mission, which is that of ending chronic diseases for Americans. So I thought he had a stellar performance yesterday. And while the Democrats were just having like an emotional breakdown.
Well, Bernie Sanders helped him out by really screaming and getting in his grill about a onesie. A child's onesie, an infant onesie that apparently had the slogan "No vax, no problem," and "Unvaxxed, unafraid," that was sold by RFK's Children's Health Defense. Bernie Sanders very upset about the onesie, and he really wanted an answer. Here's the question:
Are you supportive of these onesies?
He kept screaming it over and over. Are you supportive of the onesies?
Are you supportive of the onesies? And there's
onesies?
a meme out. Did you see the meme with Bernie Sanders in the onesie? It's hysterical. It's hysterical. But it's not just Bernie Sanders. Sorry, Larry. It's not just Bernie Sanders. I think it's also the fact that you've had Republicans like Mike Pence come out and not support RFK Jr. and he launched a whole campaign against him on the abortion issue. And we, come to learn that RFK agrees with Trump's position to stop funding for Planned Parenthood and is going to follow President Trump's lead on these anti-abortion measures.
He affirmed that yesterday.
Which I think makes Mike Pence look just completely
and
it
was revealed yesterday that Mike Pence's organization that is trying to stop RFK Jr. on grounds of abortion is also receiving a lot of money from pharmaceutical companies. So, if you don't want to look like you're in the pocket of pharmaceuticals, maybe you shouldn't, be in the pocket of pharmaceuticals. We'll see. I think he did very well. I think he's got the votes. And again, I continue to go back to my default position. The president deserves the cabinet that he wants. He won the election, after all. It's 6:53.